Ladies and gentlemen, Washington is broken. People are telling us that in their children's time and their grandchildren's time, we're not going to have a good country, that the children and grandchildren aren't going to do as well as we did, as our parents did, as our grandparents did. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we've got that long. I think in the next 2-3 years, unless we dramatically change what's going on in the United States and consequently in the world, that the world, Western civilization, the U.S. Constitution is going to be in grave danger. We have people advocating that Sharia law in the United Nations replace the Constitution of the United States. Well, if the Constitution of the United States falls, ladies and gentlemen, all of Western civilization will fall along with it. Much of the problem is in Washington are due to the politicians. All the problems in Washington are due to the politicians. The left has moved us continuously to the left, but I put most of the blame on the Republicans. The problems that we have over the past century, and particularly over the past 50 years, are due to inaction and cowardice on the part of Republicans. They get up there with the best of meaning. They tell us they're going to do great things. And when they get up there, they start drinking Kool-Aid out of the Potomac. And they decide, gee, I'm up here and I am important and I want to get reelected. And my main goal is to get reelected, and I'm not going to do anything to upset the apple cart. And that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen, with great problems. We saw yesterday in the news media that the farm bill was cut with respect to insurance payments to the farmers. I am a farmer. My family has been involved with the farm bill since the mid-1930s. I'm a 7th generation farmer. My family came here between the 1820s and 1880s. My wife is a 3rd generation farmer. Her family immigrated to the United States in the 1880s. And so we're intimately involved in this, but what happened? They went to the pot that they thought was the best to grab money out of, that $9 billion for our farm insurance, and they pulled money out of that. Money didn't come out of the food stamp program, it didn't come out of the welfare program, it didn't come out of any of the other programs. It came out of the pockets of our farmers. And in addition to the problems that farmers have dealing with the government, we've got enormous taxes to pay, we've got death taxes to pay. My father-in-law died 10 years ago, and Jane and I are still devastated by the death tax penalties that the federal government imposed on us, to the point where we can't expand, we can't do any productivity. Without that death tax, we have paid far more taxes to our federal government, and we've employed far more people if we did not have to deal with the bureaucrats. The other problem, as I mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, is we have ISIS that has grown almost unchallenged in the Middle East. The Obama administration has decided to do pinprick strikes over there. It has grown unchallenged in Syria, Iraq, moving into areas of Turkey. And now we have hordes of people moving across Europe and moving into the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got problems. And that's why I'm running for the House of Representatives, Texas 19th District. I appreciate you being here. We need accountability in Washington. And most of all, we need courage. We'll hit the ground running up there. I'm not going to wait around to hit the floor of the House to say things, to write. You'll hear from me every day. You will see me in front of the television cameras every day. And as you've seen on my newspaper column, 365 days a year over the past 11 years, you'll continue to see us breaking out information, educating our colleagues, and educating the American people 365 days a year. I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm not a lawyer. I don't consider myself a politician. I consider myself someone who wants to go to Washington to do hard work. Not to be important, but to do important work. As I said, my ancestors immigrated here almost 200 years ago. I'm the first one ever to make it out of the 8th grade. I started out in a one-room school and worked my way on up. Had some great teachers along the way, some great professors, and some great people who encouraged me. The problems that we have with respect to Washington are national security. Our federal government was put together for one purpose: to protect us and to protect the unalienable rights that God has given us. In that regard, we need to get God back into our lives, our government, our schools, and our military. We cannot have our military men and women going into harm's way When priests and preachers can't mention the name of Jesus, can't mention God, can't have a Bible, we can't have a courthouse where we don't have the Ten Commandments lest we offend judges and lawyers. We can't have schools where the kids don't learn the basic fundamentals of our Judeo-Christian heritage. We need a military, and we need an FBI, a CIA that are second to none to protect us. And we need economic prosperity. God, military, and economic security are the foundations of our national security. Our founding fathers wrote the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence, ladies and gentlemen, is our founding document. The Constitution tells us how our government is structured, but the Declaration of Independence created our country. And in that Declaration of Independence, the most important part of the first two paragraphs, what we call a preface, 126 words. And in that preface, Thomas Jefferson and our founding fathers wrote that there is a God, that God gives us as human beings certain unalienable rights that others can't take away from us. That number 3, our government is instituted for the purpose of guaranteeing and protecting those rights. And number 4, that the laws of God are unchangeable. And number 5, we the people will only be ruled with our consent. Our Constitution starts with the words, we the people. Not we the important people, not we the leaders, not we the lawyers, not we the Congress, but we the people. Second, military. I'm a former military surgeon. I was the first eye trauma surgeon in the U.S. military. I'm a Cold War era veteran. I received my commission in 1973, went active duty in 77. They put the war in the process before I could get there. I spent my time at Wilford Hall putting together the military trauma worldwide, which they brought in. I've had the opportunity to treat thousands of my fellow military people and thousands, along with veterans, and the honor of operating on several hundred of them. I've worked in 9 major Veterans Administration medical facilities, 3 in Chicago, where I spent 9 years in medical and surgical training, and 6 others, including the Audie Murphy in San Antonio, in California, and in New Orleans, and in Lafayette, Louisiana, Big Spring, and here. I understand the problems inherent in the Veterans Administration. We have wonderful physicians, we have wonderful nurses, we have great people running these, but we have a bureaucratic problem that is inherent in all areas of our government. We need military strength. We need to restore our military shield. If we don't get our military strength back up, we're going to continue to see what's going on that we're seeing in the world at this time. Terrorism, Marxism, moving in and taking over parts of the world. And if we don't get our act together, the world's going to be left to the Marxists and the terrorists dividing up what's left. We need to secure our border. That means we need to know who is coming across our border, who and what is coming into our country, who and what is going out of our country. I am all in favor of immigrants. My family were immigrants. My wife's family were immigrants. Every one of us, our ancestors came from somewhere. 12,000 years ago, people moved across the land bridge from Europe. A little bit later, they moved across from Asia. Others of us have come here by various means, but we've all come here and we're all Americans. We need a guest worker program. We need a program where people can come here and work hard, take care of their families, coming here to work, not necessarily to be citizens. We need a good immigration program to bring people in as citizens. These are not difficult things to do. They're not being done because of political reasons. We need to improve our agriculture. Agriculture is just not the production of commodities. Agriculture is an inherent part of our national security. Without the production of the food and fiber that we need and our allies need around the world, we cannot have a secure country and we cannot have a secure world. As I've said, I'm 7th generation farmer here. My wife is 3rd generation. I have a tenant who has worked for me, started working for me and my father when he was 18 years old. We've got good values back there in Illinois. He and I have never signed a contract in 30 years, and that's the way we run things in the Midwest, and that's the way people run things in West Texas, and that's the way we run things in Northern California. We're blessed with good farmers, but we're burdened by taxes, by regulations, by bureaucrats who are trying to tell us every step of the way to do. We need water. We're told we've got plenty of water here in West Texas, but I will say there's never enough water. The world is covered with water, but most of the good water for irrigation and for drinking is not in the right place. And we need, I'm not for expanding the federal government, but one of the things our federal government needs to do is to have a water program. If you've been to Israel, take a look at Israel. The fields are blooming, the greenhouses are blooming, tens of thousands of greenhouses producing water production. A lot of that's produced by desalination. And what do they do when they desalinize that water? They take that salt and put it on barges and send it up to the Russians to put on their roads in the wintertime. That's good capitalism. That's good business. And we should be looking the next 50 years, one of the great projects that we have in this world should be moving water to the deserts, to the semi-arid places, and making water plentiful. God told us in Genesis, go out and subdue the world. He didn't say, leave it the way I made it. He said, go out and subdue it. Go out and be prosperous. Go out and be creative. And we, in the United States of America, we need to resurrect our American exceptionalism, our abilities, the energy that we have and is brought by people from the outside. We need to get water in here and start being productive. Now, one of the great things that has happened, and we're not going to get into this in detail, but we will later on, is that as the carbon dioxide level goes up, we're getting more food production, we're getting more plant production. Since 1980, the plants in the semi-arid parts of the world and the deserts of the world have increased 15%. The big problems with food back 1,200 years ago, carbon dioxide was getting down to around 200 parts per million, and food production was going down. Once carbon dioxide levels in our atmosphere get down to 150 or below, all life on Earth stops. Carbon dioxide is there for a purpose. And we need to look at it and say, we need to rethink this. Because if you go to the major greenhouses of the world, whether it be in the United States or Africa or Asia or Europe, you look up on the ceilings and there's big things up there that look like jet engines, or they have named Siemens, or they're producing carbon dioxide. They're bringing it up to 1,000 parts per million. And they're increasing their production of fruit, flowers, vegetables by 50 to 60%. So that's something we'll get into a little bit later as we go on down. That's something I'm going to be looking at. Healthcare. I'm a surgeon. I'm an academic. I was chairman of 2 ophthalmology departments. I was associate dean of medical school here. I helped start the MBA program in health organization management, which I taught in for 12 years. I have an understanding of economics, of medical economics. I understand the problems that are going on and the problems we have in medicine are government bureaucracy. You can't take something like healthcare that is expensive and cumbersome and complicated and figure you're going to make it better by tossing in another 100,000 bureaucrats with Obamacare. Doesn't work. We need to get the heartless federal bureaucrats out of the way. One of the things we need to do is to get health care, education, and welfare back to the states. We need to cut regulation and taxes. We need to get the people to understand the Constitution. Professor Lowy and I debated because we want people to think. We want people to be able to understand our Constitution. He and I disagree on a lot of things in the Constitution, but that's what brought us together. That's what made us good friends, because we enjoy the debate. We enjoy reaching across the aisle and working, and that's what you're going to see me doing in Washington, is getting out there and working with the people. Not working with the people and moving left, working with the people and moving them to the right, because it's education that will change these things. I've worked with the Republicans for a long time. I'm a lifelong Republican. I'm the only person who is running who has ever gone to, as a delegate, to a Texas State Republican Convention. I've gone to 7 of them, as has my wife, as a delegate. I've led the delegation from the 19th Congressional District to both the 2008 and the 2012 Republican National Conventions. None of the other delegates have gone to a national convention, and none of them have, to my knowledge, have gone to a state convention. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to get our Judeo-Christian principles back in this country. We've got to get our national security back together. We have to take care of our farming, which is part of our national security. We have to take care of our energy production. We need to be able to produce the energy that we need and that the world needs. We have more energy supplies here in the United States of America than just about the rest of the world. By 2020, at present rates, we are going to be energy dependent of the world outside of our shores. We'll be getting our oil from internal sources from Canada and Mexico. But we need to take that a step further and produce all the oil we need, all the natural gas we need, the coal we need, the nuclear power that we need, and export these technologies to the world. Because poverty is not going to end in the world unless the world has inexpensive, cheap energy, so they can have electricity, so they can cook, so they can have refrigerators. I've spent a lot of time in the third world teaching, working, and I was one of the first people into the People's Republic of China as a foreign expert in 1980. And what the professors I visited showed me, the centerpiece of their house was they had a refrigerator. It dramatically changes civilization to be able to keep food for more than a couple of days. Ladies and gentlemen, America's best days are always ahead of us. Always ahead of us when we work to put us on God's side, our nation on God's side, to keep our national security, to increase our prosperity, to give opportunities to people to work and not to give them opportunities for a handout. I need your help. I need support. I need volunteers. I need donations. I need votes. I need to meet people. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a real pleasure to be here this morning. I thank you for your time. God bless you. God bless Texas. God bless the United States of America.